Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Air Pollution Control Board to order. This is our regular meeting, but we weren't anticipating having this meeting, so we had to put together a quorum to take care of some business that needed to be on our regular agenda. And so with that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Board Member Bennett, Board Member Blatz, Board Member Edmonds,
What do I do? Push something?
Board Member Huber, Board Member Long, Board Member Parks,
Here.
Board Member Ramirez,
Here.
Board Member Rollins, here. Board Member Zaragoza,
Here.
Chair Pollock.
Here. Okay, so that gives us a quorum, and we'll go to item number 3, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dr. Tezopoulos, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 4 is agenda review, and we have, our clerk has a couple of things to note about the agenda in front of you.
Yes, Mr. Chair. For item number 7, the approval of an employment contract and employment of Dr. Laki Tisopoulos as the Air Pollution Control Officer Executive Officer, we have received a revised board letter and Exhibit 1.
And when we get to that item, we can discuss what those items were. All right, anything else about the agenda? It's a short one. Okay, we'll go on to public comments. Do we have any public comment cards? No public comment? Board comments? Any comments from board members?
I am.
Supervisor Zaragoza.
Again, we thanked Mr. Villegas for all the service that he provided to the APCD board. And I want to thank you and commend you for all the good work that you've done, for the community and for Ventura County. And just want to share I know I mentioned that the last meeting, but just enjoy your retirement. Thank you again, and I'm sure your staff is going to miss you, but again, thank you very much for your work. Thank you.
Well deserved. Any other comments?
I was wondering who's sitting in the auditor controller seat. Oh, didn't have the tie.
He's not wearing a suit today.
I didn't even recognize you.
He was mowing the lawn and just came over.
Yeah, like I said, we organized this meeting in something of a hurry. All right, item 7 is approval of an employment contract and employment of Dr. Laki Tisopoulos as the Air Pollution Control Officer, Executive Officer. And we've been working close with County HR to do this. And I'm sorry,
Sean Ott.
Sean.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Pollock, members of the board. My name is Sean Otten. I'm the HR Director for the county and serve for the APCD also. Before I start, as the clerk mentioned, we have a revised board letter and attachments, and I'll go over the revisions that developed very, very recently as a result of our discussions. But first, I'm here before you to make 2 recommendations, and our recommendations are essentially that your board approve the attached employment contract for Dr. Laki Tisopoulos as Air Pollution Control Executive Officer, contingent upon his successful passage of the county's background and reference checks, which are currently undergoing. Dr. Tisopoulos has been kind enough to attend the meeting today, as you know, and I'm sure he's available for any comments if you wish. The second recommendation is that your board delegate to the chair appropriate authority if any necessary changes need to be made to finalize the contract. As you know, earlier this year, after many years of service, Mike Villegas has given your board notice of his retirement, and as a result, your board asked Human Resources to conduct a comprehensive nationwide search for a new APCD director. Upon completion of the recruitment process and interviews by your board, I think you chose a subcommittee to do so. Dr. Tisopoulos was selected as the finalist for the air pollution control officer position. He has 30 years of service with another local agency just down south of us, I think. Let's go over the revised contract and board letter, if you don't mind. We have a revised start date of September 3rd. I should say, however, that you know that Mr. Villegas has given his notice to be mid-August, so we're currently in discussion about what to do in the interim. Either Dr. Chisopoulos might start. We'll look at if he can change his date, or Mr. Villegas change his date, or come to your board in the for an interim solution. So I should say we're looking at that as we speak for the three-week period. Item.
Mr. Chair, Sean, are you saying the shadow Mike, is that what it is, or?
A shadow? So
Or vice
there
versa?
will be a leader of the APCD. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Chair Pollak, members of the board, just to let you know, I told you, and I've got some things set up, but I can easily extend the 3 more weeks. I have so much vacation, I could come in part-time and, we'll keep the
Something
rudder
that-
going. And just to let you know, the reason I chose August and my predecessor chose August is the budget's done. Our EPA grant report is due on the 31st of July, and other reports to the state. So this is the month if you're going to make a change to do it, but I'm willing to be available and come down part-time into the office to help out. So.
And Mr. Chair, and I'm sure that we do have enough funding to do that.
Absolutely, and yeah, there wouldn't be a break in service. We won't be overlapping, although he is going to be attending some meetings with me at the end of July at the district office. We have the California Air Pollution Control Officers, medium districts are going to be meeting in our office. I was hoping to have that overlap, and that's going to work out. So it's going to be covered.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. This is good government in action. Right? This is solutions being made. So
And this is something that Mike and I discussed in advance when we were considering doing that. Effectively, August will be a transition period anyway.
Okay, thank you.
wonderful. I'll just go very briefly through the contract. Article 4, Item C has been amended under compensation section to add an education incentive of 5%. Now, that education incentive is, of course, in the management resolution, but we thought it wise to also include it in the contract. So that would be in addition to the $205,000 base salary. And I should say that's an existing provision, but we just included it in the contract.
And that's for management employees that have their PhD or?
Exactly, a degree that's not required for the job, although in this case it's desirable, it's not required.
Correct.
That would be the advanced degree incentive. Article 5, the severance payment has been changed from 90 days to 120 days upon discussion. And I should say that's the same as what was there in the prior contract. Employee notice of termination. This is revised from 60 days to 30 days, and we recommend it as reasonable in this day and age. And then, of course, typographical errors being corrected. Chair Pollak's last
Yeah, that was the
name.
most important change.
That's likely the most important change of the whole contract. Other important features of the contract include an auto allowance of $500 per month, vacation accrual of 14.15 days per pay period, and those are all within our regular ranges. That concludes an overview of the contract. Finally, I'd like to thank your board for your leadership during this process and County Council's sage and wise advice. But I'd also like to thank Jessica Ruiz and Matt Escobedo for overseeing this recruitment process. So thank you all. And with that, I'm prepared to take any questions.
Thank you. And I want to thank Jessica also. She was our guiding hand to the standing committees. We went through this entire process, and she was extremely helpful and knowledgeable. So thank you, Jessica. Does anyone on the board have questions for Sean or Jessica?
It's really exciting. Smooth transition. Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
I
Doctor.
do have one quick question. We just replaced our executive director at SCAG also, and one of the questions we had, and we amended the contract to include, is whether automobile allowance could actually just be a travel allowance in case he wants to take the train or other ways of commuting. Would that require a change in the wording from automobile to expand
Likely,
that?
yes. I
Maybe
think-
would travel be a broader term as a?
Council can jump in, but I would think for a layperson, that would make more sense.
Need to negotiate over that.
You can amend the contract now.
Okay.
Wish to do so.
I would just say, why don't we call it travel allowance, and you can use it all for auto if you want, but it broadens the application to trains and other ways of getting around.
As opposed to just one vehicle, or you can use many, okay?
And I see Dr. Tesopoulos nodding his head. Yes, so you have no objection to that? Okay. Okay, with no objection, we'll go ahead and make that change.
Go ahead and move the contract with the change to travel allowance instead of automobile allowance.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, it is approved. Congratulations, Dr. Tesopoulos.
Thank you.
If I was not, I just say, I wasn't able to stay for the actual vote, but did get to be in the interview process, and really am excited about your background experience, your education, your goals and visions, and I know that our board wants to be there for you, and just looking at some of the incredible things that we have done over the years, I look at what's happening now with global warming, and our Board of Supervisors has taken positions both in favor of the Paris Accord, in cap and trade. We've done 100% clean energy. So we have a very strong emphasis at the Board of Supervisors to ensure that we can do all we can to stem climate change. But just looking to see if there are things that you can bring forward. One of the great things that that Mike was able to do for us is, if you remember, when they wanted to put an LNG facility out in the coast, and it was the Air Pollution Control Board that came in, and with the lead of our executive director pointing out the impacts to air pollution, which basically killed that project, which was very much opposed by the cities as well as our residents. So just seeing that there are things out there that we can do to kind of move that needle and protect our area all the better. And I encourage you to look in those directions. So, but thank you for applying. And I know we all very much look forward to working with you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'd also like to add on a little bit to what the supervisor mentioned too. I was part of the interview committee, Supervisor Bandit, myself, and our chair, Mr. Pollack, and three other individuals. And I really, really was impressed with your qualifications and your resume and all the work you've done in Los Angeles, and you traveled to DC and you traveled to Sacramento, and one of the important things that I think you mentioned is that you're going to move to Ventura County, which I think is extremely important to all of us. So I want to commend you. And also, we had a very, very good candidates. We had three candidates. We have one candidate back here that you did a really good job, and it was, I think the points were just minimal points, but Mike, you had some good candidates that applied in your division, in your department, so I want to commend, for the people that applied for that. And but again, I think your resume and your work and your presentation was excellent too, by the way. So I just want to commend you and welcome you to Ventura County, and I'm sure that you're going to do well for us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be given this opportunity, and I'm really excited for it. And I'm looking forward to working with you all, my staff, to deliver cleaner air to all residents of the county. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it.
And one of the things that you mentioned too, well, I better not say in front of all your employees now, that I want to find out what kind of pizza they like. I think
There's a backstory on that.
So you were taking notes.
I was taking notes. Somebody wants to take your photo, you want to look that direction. Look over. Look.
Ms. Ramirez, you had a comment?
And thank you, Mike, again, and thank you, Dr. Sopolis, for accepting this. I do want to say that this county has done, and a lot of cities have done a lot of things to make our air healthier, but we're in a time of really big challenge because we see we're slipping. In Los Angeles in particular, smog, people are getting in their cars, and we need to really step it up, and I think you're the person to help us do that. Thank you so much.
I hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Yes. And I also want to say that I think we were truly fortunate that you were available and willing to take this on, because there's not a whole lot of people with your kind of qualifications out there. So thank you for putting your hat in the ring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing I'd like to point out to the board too in this process is that we had great support from the county legal staff, and particularly Jacqueline Smith. Chief executive contracts are not something they do every day, so I was particularly happy that they were able to turn this around so quickly, because we ended up having to accelerate this because of a couple of technical reasons. But legal staff was able to get this turned around in a quick amount of time, and they were very helpful along the way. So thank you, Jacqueline.
And Mr. Chair, thank you, Jacqueline, for a good job.
Thank you.
All right, so item 8, we are to receive and file a status report regarding the renovation of the APCD office building located at 4567 Telephone Road in Ventura. Mr. Villegas.
Yes, before I turn this over to Chris Cooper of County Public Works, I just wanted to thank Public Works for the work they're doing on this program. I think it's moving ahead. I don't think any of us saw the Thomas Fire in our crystal balls and the effect it was going to have on the city of Ventura's plan review, but things are moving forward. And I also believe that the bid process they've set up is going to save a substantial amount of time. What they've done is they've set up the bid with a base bid of the renovations that we absolutely need to move in, and then what they call 5 additive alternatives, and 3 of them are in essence must-haves. One, the parking lot and sidewalks need to be resurfaced. We do have a long-term tenant in a dialysis center, so we really have to keep a keen eye on reducing trip and fall hazards. The other thing is a new roof. You do not renovate a building and then allow water to get into your newly renovated building. And lastly, the other one that's critical is the elevator. At a minimum, it would need some modifications for ADA compliance. And due to its age, I believe the spare parts, et cetera, would be very difficult if we chose to keep it. So I think that's going to have to happen. The other 2 are a refresh of the main restroom on the 2nd floor, which would be the main restroom for staff. Currently, it's in better shape than our current office building, and that would be a nice thing to have. And lastly, would really like to move forward, especially over the events of the past few days, with a voluntary seismic upgrade. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Cooper. I just want you to know that I wish this had moved a little quicker. I know staff's going to be quite pleased to have new workstations, especially with the variable height desks and modern meeting rooms. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris Cooper.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So what is the timeline? I'm sure that probably our Public Works is going to mention that. What are we looking for?
We're looking at a summer of next year move-in.
Summer. So about a year and, well, a year for that matter. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I think the current plan is to be actually moving into the building early next year.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you, Mike. Chair Pollack, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chris Cooper with Engineering Services County Public Works Agency. I'm here today with project manager from Engineering Services, Shauna Schlagater. She's been the active project manager working with APCD staff and going through the planning, the programming, and then working with their consultants on the design. So this project has been an honor for Public Works. As you know, or you probably don't know, we specifically work for the County of Ventura, and this is kind of, we think of APC as an extension of our family, and do good government extension of our resources and our knowledge to help Mike and his staff come up with with a design and a new office facility, I think is really good. Again, here there's no action by your board today. It's just to give a status update of the project. As you're aware, we started this project roughly 2 years ago, and as Mike expressed, it's taken us some time, and I think the fires have been a major component of that and other items for workload from our staff to the workload of the consultant staff. It would have been a great honor to complete this project for Mike and prior to his retirement, but we look forward to completing this. Our plans are in final plan check with the City of Ventura. We anticipate the plans being approved within a month. Once the plans are approved from the city, we'll advertise those and open the bids publicly. And then at that time, come back to your board for award of the projects once we have a responsible and responsive contractor. Some of the key components of the new facilities, to brief you on those, is it's roughly 21,000 square feet of remodeled office space. APCD is basically taking the full second floor and a portion of the bottom floor, 3,000 square feet. Some of the key components, I think, wonderful ideas that were developed by APCD is the open concept, office concept, is where office buildings are going to now with the new generation of employees. It also increases the flexibility of how they can program and shift. Another key component we feel is they have a large conference room which they can hold public outreach and also with training facilities. Other items on this, we look forward to doing it. The anticipation is to come back to this board in November for the award. And as we anticipate 6 to 8 months of construction time to move in, that includes also purchasing furniture and fixtures for staff and get that prepared. So with that, I conclude my presentation. We can answer additional questions if you have, and I can bring Shauna to get into the details if you ask.
Any more questions?
Mr. Chair, do we have to, we have lessees there, right? People that are leasing part of the building?
Excuse me, Sue?
There's people that are leasing part of the building?
Yes,
Do we
correct.
have to do any renovation for them, any work for those individuals?
At this time, no. There's 15,000 square feet, is my understanding, of the lower floor that will remain operational during our time of remodel. So we're not displacing them and not receiving the revenue from the leasing of that.
That continues?
That will continue, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
I had a question. The various different alternatives, are those included in the original approved budget, or will those be bidded out and those will be in addition?
Those were included in the construction budget. And the reason it's set up this way is what we've seen recently is the bids for construction, the cost has been climbing. And what we didn't want to have happen is that there were no qualified bidders. So we're having them bid on a base construction project and then bid on the additional adults, the 5 adults, and then we'll pick and choose so we can proceed without going back to the bid process again.
Okay.
And this is the procedure that I think is going to save substantial amount of time.
Because most of these look like they're almost like mandatory things that you have to do, right?
Like I said, 3 of them are absolutely we're going to have to do.
I mean, one was superficial, but the rest of it is pretty mandatory.
Board Member Owens, I just would add to that. The reason we're going with the alternative process is right now the bid atmosphere in Ventura County is very volatile. Our estimates are coming in lower than we anticipated, as you've seen in the budget increase on this project. So our concern is that we would have a solid bid, but the budget wouldn't be there. So with the alternatives, we're allowed to go on the base, what has to be done for this project, and then if budget allows, to add those alternatives and award those to the contractor. And as Mike said, that will save time that we don't have to come back to the board to ask for additional funds. It's already included. We're just concerned with some of the seismic upgrades. They're not a necessity. It's a voluntary improvement. The building was built in the early 80s under a different code, so It's not as stringent. The 80s code was not as stringent as the 2016 code. So it's not a necessity. It's a nice to have, an improvement. It's not an essential facility. But that's our concern, that the cost of the seismic improvements may go outside the 5.4 budget we've allocated for this project. And that was our recommendation with Mike.
So when they renovate a building, don't they automatically include the new seismic qualifications, or they can stay to the old ones?
They can stay to the old ones. Yeah, typically it's not included. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate all of the work you're doing in that, and we'll look forward to occupying the building.
Thank you. We look forward to completing it.
And this was just a receive and file, so there's no action requested of the board. We'll move on to item 9 on our correspondence agenda. Receive and file correspondence from Mike Villegas, Air Pollution Control Officer, to Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia, Chair of the Assembly Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife, supporting Senate Bill 69, Ocean Resiliency Act of 2019. And I can only wonder how we got involved with that.
Yeah, there's a surprise. It looks like this bill is still moving, went through this committee, got through another one last week. And the big hill I think we got over was Senate appropriations. The bill had some rather expensive components. And we frantically, Ventura County APCD staff put together a quick budget estimate. And luckily we got it to committee the night before. Unfortunately, there was a vaccine item before that committee. It was almost impossible to reach people. But I think this bill has a very good chance of moving forward. As you're aware, the funding we have at this time will run out after this season of vessel speed reduction. And this one could come back online in 2021 if this bill makes it through. So we're optimistic and hopeful right now.
Awesome. Any
Would it be helpful if we all belong to different organizations, if we got our organizations and entities to write support letters?
Absolutely, and I would be happy to provide assistance on any of those letters.
Yeah, maybe you could email the APCD with
Absolutely.
the board with a model letter or something. Thank you.
Great.
All right, and that's the last item on our agenda. Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Richard.
So does this include the ships in Ventura County? Because I saw Santa Barbara in the Bay, but
It's the Santa Barbara Channel, and that refers to everything inside the islands. So that's from basically Point Conception to the end of the Ventura, LA County line.
so the Port of Wainimi is
Yes,
included in that
absolutely.
Santa Barbara channel. Okay.
Right by there.
Yeah.
And just one
It
thing.
threw me off because I saw Santa Barbara and I saw Bay Area and I thought, well, we're Ventura. Okay.
And we're probably, when you look at the meteorology, from when the ships are off of Santa Barbara County in the channel, we're probably the recipient of the emission reductions, more so than Santa Barbara, to be honest. And lastly, you should know that NYK Lines, who comes into Port Hueneme, is also voluntarily participating in the program. And they're roll-on, roll-off carriers for autos at Hueneme.
And obviously, there's some history to this. So we've, for several years, have done what we call our Blue Skies, Blue Whales program. And Supervisor Zaragoza actually went to Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago to receive an EPA award for that program. Yes.
Sorry, I always think of something here, and I think this is a good point to maybe recommend to our new director to have a visit with the port and see the kind of things they're doing with the shore power and this sort of thing, too. Thank you.
And by the way, Kristen Deckes, the port director, was one of our advisors in the interview panel for this
Oh, yay.
process.
Yeah, she was one of the, right.
Oh, good.
And that was a question that she had too. Is port relations are very important to her. Okay.
So we don't need a motion for this.
No, this is received and filed, doesn't require formal action of the board. So
Okay.
if there's no objections, we stand adjourned until 2 weeks from now. We'll get the 23rd, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.